there YouTubers, and welcome to another servicing video from SODOR 6233. This time it's a double O gauge Thomas tank engine Hornby 060 chassis with the, I think, the Type 7 motor. Got this from eBay, reasonably priced, so if it doesn't work I can use spares. If it does work, then I've got a couple of good bodies. I'll get a nice Thomas the Tank Engine up and running one way or the other. So let's see what I'm going to do. I'm going to start off on the rolling road, see how it behaves, and then we'll take it from there. So I'm applying some voltage, remembering my rolling road is not the most stable, so I'm watching this. Yeah, so you can see it starts to run. I've got 12 volts, 10 volts on it at the moment, so it's not a very good runner. So maybe it just needs a wee bit of a service, but it did actually start to run. So I'll reverse the power and see if that makes any difference. And it's quite sluggish and reluctant to run. Having seen its struggles to run, I'm just going to do a strip down, look at all the mechanism, clean bearings and gears, and put it back together again, unless I find anything untoward, and we'll try it again. The chassis plate is held on by 4 screws, one of which is missing. It holds on one of the couplers. So if I just take these 3 out, then that will release. Oh, might need a decent screwdriver. Oh. And that releases the coupler as well. And I'm very careful with this base plate because they're very hard to come by, and I've got a couple of Thomas I waiting for these, so I'm going to be very, very careful. There's a little lip at this end that hooks over the chassis, so if I lift it up here and move it back, then that should be fine, and that looks pretty good. A wee bit of a clean, it'll be nice. The 3 axles are sitting in their cradles. These 2 here have brass bearings at each end. This one in the rear has got sprung suspension, so they're easy enough to put back without putting the wrong way. And a quick check that these wheels, these little pips on the conrod, have got to be pointing up the way, so that way we'll get them back in the correct way. Certainly looks and feels very, very dry. These are the suspension springs for the rear wheel axle. Very dry indeed. So give this a good clean up. The contacts look in good condition, but obviously very filthy. I think I'm just going to remove the motor as well whilst I'm here. So it uses a Phillips head screwdriver, which I don't have ready. Here we go. And this is a suppression capacitor. Now the motor lifts up, and there's a couple of hooks here, and it's very easy to forget about them and maybe find it stuck and force them, and they can break off, and there's dust and stew all over the place. So it's obviously been well used and well loved at some point. So put that in the box, and that just leaves us a bare chassis, and that'll just need a good clean up. I'm going to just strip down the wheel axles and clean out the guns under the conrods and try and get in here and clean the guns and the bearings. So this set of axles are held on by a slotted screw, whereas other ones have had a hex nut. So I'll try and keep these separate. And in there. And I'm just going to check the length of these screws. This has got a collar on it, if you can see that. And the outside screws also have a collar, but it's not as deep, because the middle collar has to hold 2 coin rods. The outside one's only the one. And look at that ring of hair and fluff that's came off one of the coin rod pins. So this is fairly easy to do, but it gives you good results. Look at the dirt there, and in here. And again, you can just see that dust and stir. So it's been well loved and well run, this little locomotive. So I'm hoping I'll make a good job of restoring it to working glory. So that's all the pins there. And look at that. So, a good clean up. A bit of lubrication. This is the centre drive axles that has the traction tyres, and they don't look too bad at all, but very dry, obviously needing a bit of lubrication. Look at the, I don't know if you can see that, but look at the state of this, wound around the axle. No wonder it struggled to run. Okay, that's a good clean up job. I'll come back to you soon. Okay, so let's start reassembling the drive mechanism. This is the centre wheel, and these are the front and rear drive wheels. I'm going to work from front to middle to back, so the wheels are arranged in this order. Each axle has got an insulated bush on one wheel. That's this one, so I'm going to put this away from me. And this one is the same, and in this one here. So I've got all 3 wheels lined up the same way. This is the front, so the coin rod with this overlap here goes from the front to the middle with these at the top. So this is on this side, the other one will be this side, and the other 2, as far as I can see, are basically interchangeable. I can't see any difference in length, shape or design. So let's start to build this up. I'm going to take this one here, and this will probably speed it up. And there we are. So, bit of lubrication on the inside of the axles, round about the brass bushes, avoiding the rims of the wheels. This time it's on the axle because that's to press against the springs. Good. Now for the next stage, building it back into the chassis. I nearly forgot it. I haven't paid the motor any attention. And as I look at the spindle here, you can see this compacted fluff just wrapped around the spindle. So I'm just going to carefully try and unpick it. Don't know if it's pet hair, carpet fluff, not sure, doesn't matter, it's coming out. And again, it's an indicator of regular use. Yes, this has been a well-loved little locomotive, so I want to treat it with a wee bit of respect. Just get rid of that. And of course, you can't expect an ordinary consumer to know how to get into these to keep these clean. So this is what happens after a while, and maybe it's just faded in its performance, and so they've perhaps bought a new one. So I hope they're enjoying the new locomotive just as much as they did this one. So this one doesn't look too bad. I'll just lubricate this. I use a very light sewing machine oil, which seems to serve me pretty well. And a wee touch in the end bearing here. Right, I'm just going to get out my power application probe and we'll make sure that it runs okay. Let's see if the motor will run. And it's in very low voltage, and that doesn't seem too bad at all. Try it in the other direction. Yep, I think we're okay here. Excuse me, just another little bit of fluff turning up, and I think that will happen now and again through the rest of the rebuild. That seems okay there. Right, so let's put it all together again, see if we can get this Thomas up and running. Now it's time to fit the motor back into the chassis. And a number of things you need to be aware of. The poles in the motor are little copper tabs. You just see that one there, one at top, one at bottom. This top one has to fit underneath this contact plate, and this has to fit underneath to join in with this plate here. So this pickup arm, I should say, fits in the side of the locomotive chassis, and it sits on these two support arms. Don't know if you can see that very well. Support arms in there, and then there's a little centre spigot in there that holds it, and this contact arm sits underneath the motor. The motor housing is these two plastic hooks you can see, and they fit into the chassis, and then the motor just swivels down over the recess and effectively clicks in. So at this point I'm going to check that the contacts are making contact with the motor, and yeah, so I can drive the motor from the pickup contacts. And finally, there's a little crosshead screw sits on the top, and that holds the whole thing together, and we should get the motor running from the pickups like so. Good. This axle recess has these two holes in it. Those are for contact suspension springs, whatever you want to call them. So before I put them in, I'm going to lubricate them, and I'm going to use good old-fashioned petroleum jelly. When I were a lad, my dad taught me and my brother how to build a bicycle. In those days, you could walk around scrap yards, junk yards, pick up old frames, handlebars, saddles, pedals, and then we would strip them down, and I think I'm quite pleased to say that I could take the handlebar column, take the race off the top and the bottom, strip it all down, clean all the ball bearings, count them all and put them all back again. And this is what we use for lubrication. Good old-fashioned petroleum jelly. That bicycle lasted me well over 30 odd years, so I don't think it did it any harm. So I'm just going to put a little more around the housing for these axle bearings, and there, and in here, and here. Sometimes good old-fashioned remedies are as good as, or not better than, new ones. Right, fitting the wheels in, I have to remember which way is up. This is up, so it's going to have to go in this way. I've also got to remember that this axle here goes to the back over the springs. These axles go in the front and middle respectively. And the other thing I have to do is, as I fit, make sure that the contact arms sit behind the wheels, not over them. So, quite tenderly, try one side, there, easing these brass bushes into place. And easing them isn't easy. And finally at the front, in here, line up the brass bushes, sinks in. There we are, contact arms on both sides, so I can't twist my hand further enough, but they're all there. So let's just leave that sitting here. Base plate. At the rear there is this support hole. It fits into a gap in the base plate, and then that should just sit over the wheels and connect at the front, held by these two small self-tapping screws. One in here and one in here. Not too tight to begin with, make sure it's even seated fine. Yep, and now I can just put that in there and in there. So now for the acid test, does it actually work? And yes, it does. Can we get it working? Yes, we can. Oh, that's the wrong one. That's Postman Pat. It's not Thomas. And what from this one? Yep. And this one. The centre wheels I don't think have contacts on them, so there's no pickup there. But yeah, that looks good. So the Thomas chassis is now back on my rolling road. If you remember how reluctant it was to run the first time, let's try it this time. And it runs without any real bother. It's going in reverse, which means I probably got the motor in the wrong way. That's my power supply. Oops, my rolling road I should say. I think. Oh, sorry, there we go. And yeah, it's going in the opposite way to what I thought it was, but it's running well. Speed it up. Slow down. Change direction. No problem. Yep, that's just my rolling road, don't worry about it. Right, so I'm going to just take this motor out, turn it upside down, put it back in, and then we'll check it again. So this is the donor with the broken chimney. It looks as if it's been chewed, maybe some naughty puppy at some time or other. And unusually with these 060s, this body is in 3 parts, 4 parts, and you unhook the cab first of all by gently prising it out. That releases the boiler house top, which also has the inside detailing, and then you just simply push out the Thomas face. The one thing I didn't notice to begin with is that because of the age of this one, it is comparatively drifted in shade, shall we say. It's a bit dirtier than this newer one. However, I actually just have to live with that. The upper body is held in by 2 clips, one of which had broken off at some time. Sorry, keeping out of shot. It slides into the front of the chimney and fits into the cab area and sits like so, and the clips hold it in place. The cab top sits over that, and when you're dismantling it, make sure you get this bit out first. It's quite tricky, obviously, because the child toy, there are health and safety issues about small parts, so it is not easy, but with a bit of care it is possible. And I went and broken these steps again, second time. So I'm just trying to gently ease it in, clips in there, and that holds everything in place. So this will have to be glued, second time I've broken them. I removed the buffers from the donor. There are only 3 to begin with, and one of them broke. So I'll just put them onto the rear for the time being, and I'll order up some fresh buffers and get those fitted. So, the only thing left now are coupling hooks. I had a fresh pair of coupling hooks, and I got the 2 retaining screws, which are both original. This was the original coupling hook which came off, and this one was broken. But I do have the retaining screws, so I'm just going to fit these on. Let's take this lot out of the way. So we're nearly there. That's the couplers fitted. One thing I forgot to do was refit the smiley face in the front. So I'm just going to gently line it up. That looks okay. And a gentle squeeze. And there we have Smiley Thomas back in action. Locomotive hooks into the front of the case, and there is a little clip at the back. So I'm just going to ease it in. I don't want to apply any unnecessary force, although you often feel it is necessary. There we are, that's Thomas up and running, hopefully. There we go. And I'll fix the step later on. That looks very good. For my non-runner, simple service, clean up, take all the hooks out. That's my running wheel again. Yep, there we go. Okay. Has anyone seen Thomas? Oh, there he is. Thomas, come back. I want to talk to you. There he is there. So that's my little Thomas. Bought as a non-runner or poor runner. Just very simply a good clean out, good strip down, lubrication, a replacement boiling cover because of the dome, and a new Smily Face, a couple of good couplers in the front and some buffers. I just need another pair of buffers for the front and he'll be ready to roam. Now of course I don't have a 00 layout, so sometime later on I might get the opportunity to visit somebody or build one just temporarily, and let's see if we can get Thomas up and going. So in the meantime, quite a simple video, quite a simple repair. Glad I get one or two of those now and again. Sometimes you get some really chancy ones, really difficult ones. But anyway, there we are. Hope you liked that. If you want to subscribe for more repair videos, please do so. If you want any advice, just comment underneath. Usually do engage as well, but if it's a model train that doesn't work, I'll have a go at trying to get it to run. So take care everybody, hope you liked that, and until the next time, all I can say for now is bye.